before I say anything, I have to say, of course, the internet is a boon. I wouldn't know you if the internet didn't exist.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't know, because we wouldn't do things. But don't you think that on some level it's a double-edged sword? I mean, the attention span of the people, I'm
Oh,
experiencing it like on a daily basis.
yeah.
The
No
attention.
doubt. I mean, it's like anything else. Television here in the U.S. I don't know about television. Do you have
Mhm.
is television commercial or is it government sponsored in India?
No, no. I mean, you see, it's the same everywhere. Netflix, the Amazon thing, right?
Oh,
It's
okay. So you're
it's
talking about, yeah. I mean, here in the U.S., television, has spent 70 plus years, and most of
yeah,
it's garbage when it could be something better. The internet, you know, in a sense, I'm not a big porno fiend. That's not to say I've never looked at pornography, but I think it's good that there is porno for free. That someone, I'd sooner have someone whacking off rather than becoming some serial killer because he can't get laid. But if the only thing that the internet is good for is pornography and trolls on celebrity websites, then it's pretty much a waste. But we mentioned Project Gutenberg. My God, look at all the stuff that's out there. And I'm a big
yeah,
advocate of the public domain. I think the U.S. has fucked the people over. I mean, imagine, not that I think they're great literary characters, but imagine a film where you could have Batman taking on James Bond. If they were both in public domain 40 years
mm,
ago, they'd be in public domain right now, both of
yeah,
those characters. Um,
yeah,
I think things like that, things like public domain films,
mm,
are great resources. And this is what the internet can do. Having Skype
mm,
that you and I can connect in that way, having websites is good. But yeah, most of it's going to be dumbed down.
mm,
My website or my YouTube channel, the average, you might have seen some of the people I've interviewed: academics, I've interviewed
yeah,
philosophers, actors. I've done 25, 26 actor interviews with some
mm,
very good, intelligent people. People don't
mm,
want to watch, however, 2.5
yeah,
hours of an actress talking about
yeah,
acting technique because they want to watch a girl who's 14 years old talk about putting mascara on. She'll get
yeah,
25 million views in 2 weeks. That actor
yeah,
who spent decades honing her
mm,
craft, I'll get
mm,
800 views in a year.
yeah. Yeah. 2.5, 2,500 views. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what the usual. I see on YouTube your videos like 1,000, 2,000. The one on
yeah,
sex, it has more like 4,000 views, but that's
yeah,
because of the picture that lady lying on the bed, I guess.
yeah.
But see, my question is like on a much larger scale and related to my profession, filmmaking also. See what I noticed, and I'll give you an example. Last year there was an article that in Variety that Netflix is producing 90 shows. Uh, no, not 90 shows. Like I think around 300 and something shows this year in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and the average ratio was a new show every 4 days.
Mm.
So my point being that there is just too much content out there for TVs, for movies, for cinema. One more reason why the film camera, because I don't know if you know this, but technically, when the film camera would shoot, they only had like one roll, and
Yeah,
that was
yeah,
it. Now you can just go, you can come back, you can keep doing it, you can change the thing in the computer later on.
yeah.
So there's just way too much content, and that's what there's the nihilism that comes in. That's what scares me. See, you say that Cosmoetica will be discovered. I hope so, but I feel that there's just way too much content. Movies come, they're forgotten in 1 week.
Right. Well,
Nobody remembers them.
I don't like the very term that YouTube uses, content creator. I don't just create content when I'm doing an interview. Forget even if that I was a writer or an artist. Forget even if that
Mm,
I'm a great artist. If for
mm,
example, uh, there's a video I did, for example, which I think is one of the probably 10 or 20 most important videos and films ever made, and that's an hour and 40 minutes of showing me writing a great sonnet because I explain the creative process as I'm literally doing it. It's from 1998. It's on my E-Cosmoetica channel, although you can access it from the Cosmoetica channel. But these are things, content. You have to have something more. My belief is, and I could be wrong, is that
mm,
there's already a profession known as cyber archaeology. I don't know if you've ever heard of a cyber archaeologist. These are people who go back to the stuff in the 80s and 90s when the internet was
mm,
called ARPANET. And they,
mm,
through their hoodoo, doodoo, voodoo, can somehow bring up old websites and they can look up at
mm,
things. And I believe that at some point in 50 or 100 years, assuming that global warming doesn't kill us, which I don't think it's going to, but uh, there will be people that will go back and say, well, let's look at the turn of the century. And I think slowly but surely, I've always called it the ever opening cone of greatness, meaning that if you look at, like I mentioned, if you look at Van Gogh, if you look at Emily Dickinson,
Yeah.
they weren't published, they weren't entities in their lifetime, but someone finds it, they open up. There's I forget her name. There was a photographer here in America, that there was a documentary. The name slips me. She was a great street photographer. She's become worth millions since her death. Other people are like vampires feeding off of her, but nonetheless, her work is now out there. Her name is known, even though I forget it. But uh,
Yeah. I mean, she was, I think, the Schizoid Woman or something. There's a documentary on her.
yeah. And but
She took photographs and.
yeah, but the point is, I think it will get out there. That the chaff, the bad stuff tends to fall away because every generation looks to the previous generations for quality. And I mentioned that Varney the Vampire million-word novel. No one is looking on Project Gutenberg for Varney the Vampire, but they will look for Moby Dick. They will look for something by Jack London. There is a great poem, Elizabeth Barrett Browning, who's a poet. You may have heard of Sonnets to the Portuguese. She wrote she wrote a novel in verse called Aurora Lee. It is probably the best novel in verse, certainly in English language, ever written, and it's a feminist novel, a century before feminism. She's a better poet, she's a better writer than Emily Dickinson could ever dream of, but she's marginalized because she was married to Robert Browning, a famous English poet, and because she was a woman, and because she wrote these sonnets to the Portuguese, which are excellent sonnets, but she's sort of been ghettoized as a sonneteer. But my point is, I really do believe there will be people that will be hashing through this. I think that by making connections with someone like you, or with Xinjiang Zian, some people will find these things. Maybe someday someone like you or another filmmaker will say, you know, this Dan Schneider was interesting. I want to do a documentary about Cosmoetica, or I want to do, about his ideas and whatnot, whatever it might be. Like I said, I'd be foolish to I'm 50. I'm going to be 54 in a couple of days. I'm even if I won, $1 billion in a lottery system, it's not going to change my life fundamentally. I could change other people and I could change art fundamentally, but it's not going to fundamentally change me. I'm set. I'm in my ways. I'm going to be who I am regardless.
I mean, look, I appreciate your optimism, but I think, I mean, I'll have to disagree because I'm not just talking from an art perspective, like from a societal perspective also. What I mean to say is, like, there's just way too much content, Facebook, YouTube. People don't have the time. That's one thing. Second thing is, like you said, the attention span is gone. The majority of people, I'm not saying but the majority of people cannot sit through. See Netflix, for example. I have seen people change like 5 minutes. They don't like it, they change it. 5 minutes, they'll change it.
Well,
So what?
Let me just say, I think what you're doing is overestimating the past. The past, guess what? There were idiots in the past. They weren't online trolls, but they were the weird people who would sit in a corner and suck their toes and talk to themselves and hear dogs talking to them. They were the idiots that would go around and would just eat and fart at the end of the night. They didn't have the internet, but those idiots were still there. Trolls are not a new phenomenon. Trolls are just using a technology that helps them be recognized as trolls more easily. I've said this, and let me just give you a quote, is that the internet has exploded the myth that there's the wisdom of the common man. The common man is a boob, an idiot. They vote for people like Donald Trump. They vote for people like Hillary Clinton. They don't want real things. You can, there's, as P.T. Barnum, an American showman, said in the 19th century, there's a sucker born every minute. But there are people who are intelligent. Art has always appealed to the upper crust intellectually, the elites, the elites in the best sense, not elites because their daddy gave them money, but people who are elite because they're intelligent, because they care about more than just their own little lives.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not looking from that perspective. See, you just said the example of Van Gogh, but then how many people were painting during Van Gogh's time? That's my question. How many films were being made in the 1950s? See, I looked at all this, when the Gutenberg, Roger Gutenberg, I go in the, there are pages on like 16th century everyday life. And I like to see what people thought. So my point being that there was not much content being made. See, so like in the 40s, if you could say that, oh, this film was recognized, but then how many films were made in the 40s in any given year, 1942 or 1957? Maybe 100,
You're absolutely
20.
true. But like I said, there are people. There is a whole field called cyber archaeology for stuff online,
Mm,
and I can tell you here in America, and I showed my
mm,
wife this, and I've showed other people. If you go to used bookstores, you'll be amazed. You'll go to the shelves and blow the dust off dusty books, and you'll see names of writers and books. And my wife has said, we made fun of some of the bad writing, and I said, you know who that was? I said, that was the David Foster Wallace of 1890. And look
mm,
what's happened to that person because it falls away. No one is going to be reading Thomas Pynchon. No one is going to be reading David Foster Wallace. These dead white males. And as much as I rail against political correctness, I at least understand why people want that. They want, they want an Indian David Foster Wallace. They want a black or a lesbian Thomas Pynchon. For me,
mm,
be I want diversity in thought and quality.
mm,
I don't care that you're Indian. It doesn't matter
mm,
to me. I don't care that you have a penis and testicles. Whether you're a female or whether you're intersex, that doesn't matter. Whether you're homosexual or heterosexual, whether you're a Hindu or a Christian, none of that matters to me. It's
mm,
that you have a mind, and it is no doubt it's going to be much harder 100 years from now than it is now. But
mm,
I do think that it also becomes a lot easier. They're going to be smarter. We can talk about how dumbed down things are, but I can tell you, just in my lifetime, when I was going to kindergarten, when I was 5 years old in 1970s, kindergartners are
mm,
smarter now. They're smarter in the functionary things. Well, I'm not
mm,
talking about creatively, because creative people are always been a breed apart. But your average
mm,
kid, your average 5 and 6 year old today, I've had kids talk to me and email me talking about black holes, talking about
mm,
concept. Now I knew that. I knew what a black hole supposedly was. I knew what the Big Bang was when I was 5 or 6.
mm.
But I can
Yeah.
tell you, most of my friends, they were sticking their fingers up their ass and scratching their asses and picking their nose and loving their
Mm,
boogers. That's about
yeah.
it. Not that there aren't
Yeah.
booger loving kids today, but there are more
Mm.
kids now who know about black holes and know about
Oh, yeah.
Teddy Roosevelt and know about comparative religion. They'll know here in America, for example, what Islam is. In
Mm,
1970, your average a 5-year-old kid didn't know what Islam was.
mm. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Uh, but also, like you said that your written interview, it's one of the most read, and it's one of the most high quality interviews online,
Mm.
and it's true because I haven't read this kind of content anywhere. And likewise, the interviews on the television and the examples you gave, Dick Cavett, William Buckley,
Yeah.
or the Open End by David Susskind.
Mm.
So now, thanks to the internet, thanks to YouTube, I watch all those things.
Yeah.
And don't you think that it has severely deteriorated, like the interview format, or you